Oh my God. Hi, everybody. Welcome into the High Noon Rant with me, Pugs Moran. Hold on, am I live? I am live. Let's get the chat room up, get the chat room going. Who's first in the chat today? I always like to see. Typically, it's going to be Taronda. Who's going to be first in the chat? This is the High Noon Rant. We do this every single Monday through Friday, high noon, 12 p.m. We get together. Rainy Days is in first. It was Rainy Days, not Taronda. Peter's here. Peter's here. Of course, Peter's here. You want to know why Peter's here? Because Peter is, that's right, today's executive producer of the High Noon Rant is Peter L. Cam's here. Cam's another guy that helps out. Thank you, Cam. Leslie C., my girl Barty, everybody's here. That's it. Come on, folks, everybody. Grab your futons, grab your yoga mats, your beanbag chairs, whatever it is. Let's form that soul circle of life. Join hands and move forward. I know I'm a little bit late. What are you going to do? Complain? You're going to complain about me being a little bit late today? That's how you choose. We're going to spend the next 2 hours venturing forth into the world of unknowns. And you want to start it by being like pissy. You want to start it with, you were like 8 minutes late. Yeah, I know. So what do you want? You want justice for that? Well, let me tell you something. Justice is a construct invented by the powerful to keep the subjugated convinced that they have some recourse in all of this. It's not a thing. There will be no justice. All right, so what do we do on this show? I give you all the stuff that the world is buzzing about. Headlines, hot topics, current events. If it's happening today, I've compiled it this morning. I got a bright and early crack of the rooster's crow. Is that a thing? That sounds like it could be a thing. Crack of the rooster's crow. That's mixing a whole bunch of metaphors there, but it works. All right, so let's go with that. I want all of you at some point in the next, I don't know, year, say crack of the rooster's crow. I think we can make it catch on. So I get up early and I start looking at all the news. I watch all the shows and I make a list and I start, this is what people are talking about today. These are the big news stories. And we do it. I present them to you at high noon, 12 p.m. Central Standard Time, every day, Monday through Friday. Now, as I said, Peter is our executive producer. How do you get to be executive producer? You're probably going, hey, Pugs, that sounds like a pretty worthwhile thing to pursue to try and become the It is. All you got to do is drop a little something because this show runs on your gratuities. This show 100% asks the question, do you like the bullshit talk radio you get on regular radio? Do you like the, red versus blue and, everybody's a monster and our whole world is nothing but absolutes. There's no nuance or gray area or room for, if you like that, get the hell out of here. That's what I say. But if you don't like that, you want to encourage this kind of talk radio that just engages in all the topics in a fun, lighthearted. Okay, I'm not lighthearted. I get mad and I rant. I mean, this is called a rant. So, but if you like that, this show needs your help and your support. So if you feel so inclined at any point, drop a little something in the Cash App, in the Venmo. Big tipper of the previous day gets to be the executive producer of the next day's show. And that's why we're celebrating the great works of Peter L. We do the show in 4 quarters. You need to be aware of this. 4 quarters. Look at it like a football game. First quarter, we do a little thing called Erstwhile on This Day. That's where we take a look back at all the things that have happened on this day. Oh, you've heard it done a million times. Everybody, on this day in history, this day in rock history, man, whatever it is, you've heard it done. I do it a little different. I don't know. It's me. It's different because it's me doing it. These are my words, not somebody else's. Then quarter 2, we go into a thing we call birthdays. This is where we look at people who were born on this day, and I pretty much decide whether I like them or not. And I just go, yeah, that dude's a dick, or I love this guy. And although I resist the urge to exist in a world of absolutes where everything is the best or the worst, I resist that. This is one of the segments of the show where I do engage in a little bit of absolutism. That's quarter 2. That's birthdays. Quarter 3 is the deads. I like the deads. Same thing as birthdays, except the opposite. We look at people who died. We crack open their life resume. And then I, again, with the help of you, the fine folks in the chat room, we decide whether or not, based on our own understanding of what it takes to get into heaven or hell, where'd they go? They died on this day. Where did they go? We talk about that. So that's it. That's quarter one, erstwhile. Quarter two, birthdays. Quarter three, deads. Then we get into quarter four. Quarter four is the meat and potatoes. It's everything that's happening today. So without further ado, let's stop delaying the process and let's get started with today's high noon rant. I am Pugs Moran. It is the 14th day of November, year of our Lord, 2023. November 14th is the 318th day of the year. There are 47 days remaining until the end of the year. Get those New Year's Eve plans. I mean, yeah, legitimately. I'm not even trying to be silly about that. Now would be the time you'd start thinking about New Year's. Honey, what do you want to do for New Year's like now? You might hear that. You could hear that like any time between now and, well, New Year's Eve, I guess. All right, let's do the first segment, erstwhile on this day, or if you're more inclined, previously on November the 14th. On this day, previously, erstwhile, on November the 14th, year of our Lord, 332. I don't even know if that was year of our Lord, because it's BC. What? Man, I just attached that year of our Lord to everything, since, there's been a Jesus. But I think this happened before I don't know. I don't know what that means. 332 BC is what we're going to go back to. So on this day, Alexander the Great is crowned Pharaoh of Egypt. Alexander the Great. Share a birthday with him. Me and Alexander. Yeah, it's pretty good. Some people, maybe you got Mick Jagger. That's pretty cool. Who you got? Oh, Demi Moore? Really? Oh, you share a birthday with Demi Moore? That's so neat. Harry Styles, get out of here. You're lucky. Not me. Alexander the mother effing great. That's who I share a birthday with. Explains to some degree my narcissism, or at least, where it began. On this day in 1851, let's move forward. 1851, Moby Dick, a novel by Herman Melville, is published for the very first time in the United States. Moby Dick, originally titled, "We're going to need a bigger boat." No, it wasn't. That doesn't even make sense. It's a Jaws line. What is that about? On this day in 1957, the Appalachian Meeting takes place. Oh, man. Come on now. This is my wheelhouse. This is one of my favorite subjects. Not per se the Appalachian Meeting, but the overall history and stories surrounding the mythology of American organized crime. Love it. Now, look, can we say, I like to stay tethered at least to the originals, the greatest hits, the classics. So you got your Five Families of New York. I'm very interested in the outfit. I'm a bit of an expert on the Chicago outfit, which is sort of, my zone. I grew up with dudes whose dads were in the outfits, shit like that. So the outfit is what in Chicago they call their crime family, their mob. I guess outside of Chicago, you would probably understand it more if I said the Capone crime family. So it's the Capone crime family. It's referred to as the outfit. So I'm more of an expert on that. This Appalachian Meeting took place in 1957 in upstate New York. The idea was there had been, so we all know the Five Families. The Five Families of New York are the fabled, we think they're the scariest mafia. They're really not. And here's why. The Five Families of New York are like five tough little families that control places like Cleveland and Indianapolis. You understand? They're in New York. They don't control all of New York. They just control a little area. So each individual family of the Five Families is not that powerful. Now they could be. They could have been. Years ago, they could have been. See, here's the problem. They freaking hate each other. The Five Families of New York cannot stop whacking each other's bosses. It's just terrible. And in 1957, it was really bad. You had guys like Carlo Gambino trying to make moves on old dudes like Albert Anastasia, and there was mayhem breaking out. So, at the behest of, it was Sam Momo Giancana, who was the head of the Chicago outfit at the time, Capone's family. It was Sam Giancana. And by the way, when I say he was the head, he was the public head. The real boss of that Capone crime family was Capone's driver and bodyguard, Tony Accardo, who had retired publicly, but was still calling all the shots. Accardo was still the boss, but as far as the feds were concerned, the guy on the street making the moves was Sam Momo Giancana. So Sam Momo Giancana says, there's some nutso stuff going on here in New York. Hey, why don't we do this? Why don't we get everybody together? Why don't we get all the different people? Let's get all the 5 families from New York. Let's invite the boys from Buffalo. Let's get the Traficantes down there in Florida to come on up here. Why not, huh? Let's get the Buffalinos involved. That this is Sam Giancana, head of the Chicago outfit, saying this. Let's all get together. We'll do it in Chicago, neutral territory. We'll fet you. We'll feast you. You all have a great time. Now, the New York family didn't like that because they didn't like the power that the Chicago outfit was getting at the time. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, the Chicago outfit, unlike New York couldn't expand because when the Gambinos tried to expand, they were now bumpering up against the Bonanos, and now they got a problem with their so they couldn't expand. Chicago could expand. Chicago had the entire West. Chicago did Los Angeles. They controlled the film industry, the outfit in Chicago, and then they went and built Las Vegas. So that cash cow, especially around 1957 when this meeting was called, in all of organized crime, it was the money that suddenly Vegas was bringing into the Chicago outfit that was, as we saw in the film Casino, that was just making the difference. So they were powerful. They wanted to hold the meeting in Chicago. Everybody else, all the other crime families, they were like, we don't like how powerful these guys think they're getting. Let's do it in New York. Let's make them come here. And one of the great, FUs to this whole Appalachian meeting, which occurred on this day in 1957, the meeting of all the mob bosses in America, the big FU to it was that the Chicago outfit said, yeah, you kids go do your little thing. We're going to stay here. And you know who they sent as a representative? They didn't send a boss. Everybody else sent a boss. You were supposed to send a boss. They sent the boss of Springfield, who was just an underboss in the outfit. They just sent the boss of Springfield. They sent nobody from Los Angeles representing Los Angeles. They sent nobody representing Las Vegas. So it was kind of like, you guys are screwed up. Now, I'll get back to this point, okay? The reason I tell you the Chicago outfit's role in the Appalachian story is just because I want you to have context for when I tell you the story. So all these mob bosses from all around the country get together in 1957 on this day. They meet up at Joey the Barber Barbera's place in Appalachia, New York. Joey the Barber Barbera is the underboss of the Buffalo crime family, okay? So he's seen as somebody who is outside the 5 families. He's seen as somebody neutral. And, if the boss has got to go, honestly, they didn't want to travel far. So this was a good location. So the Buffalo crime family, they set it up. They set it there at Joe Barbera's place in Appalachian, New York. Appalachian, New York is a population of like 20 people. It's a tiny little like mountain lake town in upstate New York. It's a weekend town, a resort town. Maybe it gets a little busy in the summer, but when all of a sudden in November, when hundreds of limousines with out-of-state plates start showing up in the cops get a little bit, they're like, huh? So one cop starts tracking all of these license plates as they roll into town. And he starts seeing that these cars are all registered to dudes with lengthy criminal records in New York and Philadelphia. And so as the story goes, the police in upstate New York, the police in this town, the state police were called in. They mobilized very quickly. That's the thing. The police, for a little sleepy town, to just be reacting to one patrolman's noticing of license plates, they sure did mobilize a lot of forces. They had the entire state police. So they swatted this place. So the meeting's going on. Every mob boss in the country is sitting in there smoking cigars and talking about prostitution and gambling and drugs, and they're doing all that. Meanwhile, outside, this incredible army of law enforcement has surrounded the property. And boom, they move in. They bust everybody. It was J. Edgar Hoover's proof to the rest of the nation that there was a criminal conspiracy at the national level, that there was such a thing as organized crime. Because until that point, anytime you get one of these mob bosses in front of Congress, he'd be like, organized crime? I don't know anything about that. They were all like, there was no such thing. So Appalachian became proof of that. They all got arrested. Not all of them, a bunch of them ran out into the woods in their fancy suits and their leather loafers and their shoes. The scene has been depicted in a number of films. Famously, not depicted per word, but inspired by the famous scene at Johnny Sack's place in The Sopranos, where Tony Soprano is forced to run through the backwoods and he drops his gun and all that stuff. That's inspired by Appalachian. Also, the great scene I referenced yesterday during the show when we were talking about Joe Mantegna's birthday. The scene in Godfather 3 where Joey Zaza enacts his revenge on the heads of the families. Remember the scene at the Atlantic City Casino with the helicopter outside the window. That inspired by the Appalachian events. So told you to put a pin in the role that the Chicago mob had in this. So the mob boss who was sent by Chicago was the boss of Springfield. Remember, Chicago was like, have it here, neutral ground. We'll oversee it. We'll make sure nobody gets out of line. And they were like, yeah, you guys are being a little bit too cocky lately. We're not going to indulge you with this favor. So they held it in upstate New York. The guy that Chicago sent in protest, they're like, yeah, well, then we ain't going. We ain't going up there for this. Is stupid. Everybody in one place. First of all, it's dangerous. Like, that was the complaint. So they ended up sending, just so that they could have someone there who could tell them what happened, ended up sending the mob boss of Springfield. Now, this guy was currently under indictment. So if it all went bad, this guy was in a lot of trouble. And I guess the family was looking for a way to get rid of him. So the Chicago family sent this guy, the boss of Springfield, just on the off chance that it went bad like they thought. And everybody got arrested. They're like, yeah, this guy will do time. He won't talk. He'll be out of our hands. We don't have to worry about him anymore. That's how you treat your friends, huh? Organized crime. So anyway, a lot of people believe that it was, in fact, the Chicago outfit who tipped off the New York State Police about the Appalachian meeting. Because it's always been a little bit hard to swallow that one diligent cop, one hero cop in small town Appalachian noticed that all of these, and then was able to like mobilize. And the story, as they tell it, is over the course of a couple hours. So over the course of a couple hours, the entirety of the New York State Police law enforcement was able to descend on this small town, organize, have a plan. See, that's the other thing. They had a plan. Like, they went into the arrests of these guys. It was a dragnet. They don't come up with that, in like 45 minutes on a Saturday afternoon when everybody's, on the golf course or whatever they're doing. No. So the belief is that the Chicago outfit is behind the Appalachian bust because, one, they were mad that they didn't have the meeting in Chicago where they promised total security. Like, they wanted to prove, listen to us, okay? See, you got busted. We told you were going to get busted. And two, because they wanted the boss of Springfield, Illinois, to go to jail. They wanted him arrested. And they knew that he was arrested around these people, it would be a violation of his parole or whatever it was. Anyway, that happened on this day. One of the great moments in American crime comedy, the Appalachian bust of 1957. On this day in 1969, in the Apollo program, NASA launches the Apollo 12, the second crewed mission to the surface of the moon. So I got a rule here, being born on July 20th, 1969, the day we landed on the moon, that I doff my cap to all great achievements by our space program, especially the Apollos. These guys are second. It's like, yeah, Apollo 11. Yeah, let's talk about, they make documentaries about Apollo 11. They even made a movie about Apollo 13. Apollo 12. We expected it. All right. On this day in 2008, the very first G20 summit. I don't know what that is. And that's happening again. That's like the 20 most powerful nations in the world. They get together and figure out how to exploit poor people. Yeah, that's what's going on. All right. Let's move on to birthdays. Buana. They say it's your birthday. Let's see here. Birthdays. Born on this day, 1840. Claude Monet. He's a painter, and I only mention him because I screwed up once. I was really dumb. I was dating a girl who I would marry, my first wife, and she was really into Monet. And like, I bought her. I don't know from Monet. I know she likes Monet. She's a classy chick, She likes this. So I bought her a coffee table book as a gift. I was like, here, baby, I know you like Manet, and I gave it to her. And yeah, you heard it. That's right. She liked Manet, or she liked Monet, and I went and got her a coffee table book of Manet, which she was nice, and she was, she made me feel terrible about it because, again, classy dame, but I knew I screwed up, and I was like, I'm so stupid. Why can't I be more cultured? Everyone knows the difference between Monet and Manet. Nobody knows the difference between Monet and Manet. I'm sorry, and if you do, you're probably a pretentious dick. All right, born on this day in 1840, Claude Monet, the guy who I screwed up because I confused with Manet. Born on this day in 1878, Manet. See what I mean about coincidences? They're born on the same day. You're telling me that there are famous artists. There are two famous artists. One's name's Monet, one's name's Manet, and they're born on the same day? Dude, the world is weird. I've been telling you about coincidences. That's a weird one. That's like, especially since I have such a story that concerns both of them. That's the only reason it's weird, I guess. So I guess it's just weird to me. Moving on. Born on this day in 1908, Joe McCarthy, crazy-ass Wisconsin senator who we let make decisions about important stuff for years when he had a brain tumor that was making him nuts. Born on this day in 1916. Here's a name that brings smiles to Gen X pusses. I need a drink. I'm going to say the name first, and I'll take my drink. Sherwood Schwartz. This dude made TV. This dude made TV of the highest order, according to a 6-year-old watching reruns. That's what Sherwood Schwartz was. Gilligan's Island, Brady Bunch, right? I mean, those right there. If you were to ask me at 8 years old, name the greatest TV shows in history, Sherwood Schwartz would occupy 2 of those spots, because Gilligan's Island and Brady Bunch would certainly have been in there in my list as an 8-year-old. Born on this date in, let's see what year we had. No, born on this day in 1927, McLean. That's his middle name. His middle name is that sound. Stevenson. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome McLean Stevenson. How do you pronounce that, McLean? McLean Stevenson, one of the great funny career miscalculations in history. He was riding high. He was the most popular man on American TV. MASH was breaking records. He was the biggest star in American television. And McLean Stevenson wanted to be, I don't know, Richard Burton. I don't know. He wanted to go make movies. He wanted to be a movie star. Felt he was better than MASH. So in a very big and very showy display, he walked out on his contract. He said, I am McLean Stevenson, the most popular actor on television, and I shall not work for this paltry sum. And he walked out and he left. McLean Stevenson didn't know that they had Colonel Potter waiting in the wings. That's right. McLean, you're not that important. What was his name? What was McLean Stevenson's character's name? Colonel Dumbass. All right, we'll just call him Colonel Dumbass. Colonel Dumbass. We all like Colonel Potter. Yeah, you were fun. Colonel Dumbass was fun, and you were more like you were like a player's colonel, more than, a colonel's colonel. And then Harry Potter came on, and he's kind of by the book, but he's older, and he's seen it all. So he's treating you like, you're the third-born son and not the first-born son. Like, the guy who's raised 3 sons, he's going to be a little bit like, that's how That's how Colonel Potter came in. Was it Henry Potter? Is it Henry Potter? Harry Potter, whatever. I'm calling him Harry Potter. McLean Stevenson. He left. McLean Stevenson left MASH to go be a big movie star. And yeah, you guessed it. All right. McLean Stevenson, happy birthday. Born on this day in 1929. Born on this day, 1927, sorry. Born on this day in 1929, the greatness. Oh boy, one of my favorite people. I don't know why. I was dumb. Again, this guy became one of my favorite people at like 6. Evel Knievel, Santa Claus, and this guy. Ladies and gentlemen, it's Jimmy Pearsall's birthday. A lot of explaining how I'm kind of a weird guy, kind of screwed up, kind of well, I guess not boring would be a good way to put it. Is maybe because when I was little, I thought the height of male adult behavior was the interaction between Harry Carey and Jimmy Pearsall at White Sox games. Yeah, these were the 2 guys who did White Sox games when I was a little kid. So my earliest memories of baseball was sitting there listening to Harry Carey, who was drunk, talk to Jimmy Pearsall, who was insane, for like 9 innings. It ruined baseball play-by-play for me. Never again. I mean, you could do things back. You could get away with things back then. But my memories of drunk Harry Carey and insane Jimmy Pearsall. And I'm not saying insane like you talk about your friend at work. Dude, he's insane. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking like crazy. Crazy in a time when they didn't really diagnose crazy. They just kind of, especially if you were like making money and you were, in Jimmy Pearsall's case, a great athlete, they kind of let you go crazy until it got out and you started embarrassing the team. Then they'd do something. That's who Jimmy Pearsall was. Jimmy Pearsall was a center fielder for the Boston Red Sox. He was very good. He was nuts. He was clinically insane, and he was institutionalized, and his career was, torpedoed because, he's a crazy guy. Because back then, being crazy wasn't like it is now. Like now, still, there's people, you're crazy, oh, cooties. But it's a lot less than it was. Back then, it was like, crazy, huh? You know what was nuts? If you had a mental illness in like 1950, you were shunned. You know what else you were shunned for in 1950? If you were raped. Like women who were raped were seen in the, like that was a shameful thing. Like, well, what kind of, she was raped. What? What do you mean? Anyway, point is, Jimmy Pearsall, that's who basically, conversationally, Jimmy Pearsall and Harry Carey were the absolute best. Here, let me show you. I got a couple of things that I want to show you, just because a lot of people don't know who Jimmy Pearsall was. He's an old head baseball guy. He's dead now. He's crazy, very provocative, suspended from every broadcast he was ever a part of. Why? Because he just said things that were crazy. He's nuts. Okay, so what do we do here? Okay, so this is from the movie. They made a movie about his life, and it's one of the first books I ever read as a child was the Jimmy Pearsall book, Fear Strikes Out. Well, they also made a movie about it starring Anthony Perkins, and it was one of the, it's a good baseball movie. I mean, first of all, it's a mental health movie and a baseball movie, and it's funny from a mental health movie standpoint because of the way they handle mental health when this film was both made and depicted. So Fear Strikes Out is the story of Jimmy Pearsall being a crazy person in Major League Baseball in the 1950s. And this is an example of a very real incident that occurred during Jimmy Pearsall's career. This is the guy who at 6 years old, I would sit in front of the TV and think, this is the coolest, most rational man alive. Like I said, it explains a lot. Fear Strikes Out, Jimmy Pearsall's meltdown. This guy right here, and his father's an asshole. So everything he's doing is he's doing to try and impress his father, to try and be good enough for his father. So he just made an in the park home run. How was that? How was it? This really happened. Get in that dugout, I showed him. So that's the most famous thing that Jimmy Pearsall ever did, the climbing of the backstop. He climbed the backstop. He'd done a lot of things. He'd been arrested multiple times in the dugout during games. Like one time he flipped out with a bat and just started waving it at everybody, and the cops had to come and tackle him in the dugout. So Jimmy Pearsall, he goes into a mental institution. He ends his baseball career, and he reemerges in the early 1970s as a baseball play-by-play guy with Harry Carey, the legendary Harry Carey. People like me, young baseball fans of the era who were White Sox fans, we loved him. We thought he was the greatest, craziest thing ever. And then this happened when I was 10 years old. Here's a news report from Jimmy Pearsall, how his career as a baseball play-by-play man ended. Ceremoniously, unceremoniously, whatever, you decide. Here we go.
Round of the Western Open Golf Tournament, but the story everybody's talking about in the sports world involves controversial White Sox broadcaster Jimmy Pearsall. Now, Mike Lederman is out at Comiskey Park now, live with details on that and the rest of it. Mike?
Jim, thank you. Jimmy Pearsall's broadcasting career and, let's face it, Jimmy's life in general are in states of confusion today. Pearsall assaulted a suburban sports writer, Bob Gallus of the Arlington Heights Daily Herald, before last night's game here at Comiskey Park with the Angels. Later, he fought with Mike Veeck, as he's Bill Veeck's son. Jimmy remains hospitalized tonight. The first incident took place outside the White Sox training room here in the clubhouse. Reporter Gallus was talking to trainer Herm Schneider and pitcher Ross Baumgarten. Pearsall came in from the other side of the clubhouse. He thought the group may have been discussing a story that Gallus was working on over why the players voted to remove Pearsall as a part-time coach.
He stormed across the clubhouse and yelling at me that if I wanted to ask any questions about him, I should ask him only.
Hey, that deserves a little context. So he was such a popular broadcaster with the fans that the fans started, because fans know everything. They're like, he should be a part of the team. So the team was pressured into making him a hitting coach for the team. And did I mention he's crazy? And so the team was like, no, he can't be the hitting coach because he's crazy. And Rob Gallus, this guy, a sports writer, was writing a story about that. Jimmy Pearsall walks into the locker room, sees Rob Gallus, doesn't want him writing that he didn't get to be batting coach anymore because he's crazy, and they started fighting.
And kept yelling, and eventually his hands were around my throat. Well, I'm a little shaky on what happened at that point. I do know that we were pulled apart. I mean, I was trying to get him to release the grip. And we were pulled apart and separated, and that's about it.
After Pearsall was pulled away from Gallus, the announcer went up to the broadcast booth where club executive Mike Veeck, Bill's son, was waiting. Here, young Veeck confronted Pearsall. The two came to blows. Pearsall's face was bloodied. He was taken...
So Pearsall attacks Rob Gallus in the locker room. They immediately call from the locker room to Mike Veeck, who's in charge of PR for the team and the son of the owner, Bill Veeck. Mike Veeck goes, oh, Jesus, I'm going to the booth. I got to talk to him about this. So he goes up to the booth. Jimmy Pearsall apparently runs into the booth and attacks Mike Veeck. Mike Veeck tunes old man Jimmy Pearsall up. Good. Knocked out a bunch of teeth, broke his nose. That's what they meant when he said, Jimmy, that's why he was in the hospital. Remember that Jimmy Pearsall remains hospitalized tonight because he went nuts and a young dude cleaned his clock.
Later with what was termed exhaustion.
The big thing I'm interested in is that he's all right and that we do what he needs to make him all right if he isn't. Now, I don't know if he's all right or if he isn't all right. My association with him has always been a happy one. We kid each other back and forth. I've never had any problem with him. I find him a wonderful human being. So I just can't understand it.
Well, the White Sox and the stations that carry the Sox games.
All right, that's enough of that. But that's how it ended. That's how I lost Jimmy Pearsall from my life. He was so important to me as a youngster. And then he loses his shit and beats up a reporter. And then he gets beat up for beating up the reporter. Oh, it was crazy. They were so good, you guys. Jimmy Pearsall and Harry Carey, they were so good. I don't even know if there's any tapes of those games. It wasn't like you were, first of all, who cares about baseball on the radio, right? It was like listening to a talk show between two guys who every now and again would mention the game that's going on. But really, they would just talk about fans. They'd pick on somebody, and they were just so great. Pearsall and Carey, man. And then they got rid of Pearsall, and they started putting people with Harry, who Harry didn't like, and that's how the White Sox lost Harry Carey to the Cubs. Born on this day in 1929, one of the greats, Jimmy Pearsall. Born on this day in 1930, another one of the greats. Sorry, let's stop being silly. I dock the cap once again, as I do an appreciation for all the fine and valiant work that our American astronauts did back in the 1960s. It's on this day, born unto this world, Ed White. Ed White's one of the greats. Ed White's one of the greats. We build schools after Ed White. There are any number of Ed White high schools and all that. Why? Because White, Chaffee, and Grissom burned up on the pad. They were the three: Gus Grissom, Virgil Chaffee, and Ed White. This is, what I always say about don't be first generation. Man, you don't want to be first generation. It's why I say, plane travel between like the end of World War II and the year 2000, they were still working the bugs out. That's why planes were crashing all the time because, they didn't spend enough on a bolt that holds the engine on. And they learned at 30,000 feet that after so many miles that bolt's going to give way. That's what was going on. That's why it's like, first generation, they got to work the bugs out of shit. They hadn't worked the bugs out when Ed White burned alive inside the capsule. It was at that moment when they realized when the astronauts needed to escape the capsule on the pad because a fire had started, they needed to immediately escape. They realized that there's no way to get out of the capsule. See, you live, you learn. All the flights after that, there was a way to get out of the capsule. There was no way to get out of the capsule, and they died. Ed White, born on this day in 1930. Born on this day in 1947, P.J. O'Rourke, a great American political satirist, journalist, writer, Rolling Stone, famously. P.J. O'Rourke, born on this day in 1947. Born on this day in 1949, one of my dudes, J.Y. That's right, James Young. I love James Young. James Young is such a normal dude. He's just a regular guy. James Young looks like an old stoner from like the 1970s. You walk into a pizza place off of Pulaski or something in Chicago, maybe out in the South. I think his place is in Midlothian. So I think he's got like one of those big giant places on the Midlothian Country Club. This means nothing to anybody except people who know the Southwest suburbs or the South suburbs. You can walk in, you see this stoner with like long hair and he's wearing a dirty t-shirt and jeans. And maybe he's having a beer. Maybe he's watching the Sox game. That's freaking JY, mother effer. James Young, guitar player, Styx. The guy in Styx who was like, hey man, can we rock a little more? JY was cool. JY is cool. James Young, born on this day, 1949, lead guitar player, songwriter, wrote a lot of their stuff. The cool guy. He's the cool guy. The rest of the people in Styx, with all due, look, Dennis DeYoung is a theater kid, fine talent. I like talent. You can make money with talent. That's great. Tommy Shaw is a bit of like a pretty boy D-bag, in the short, good-looking guy who steals your girlfriend when you go to the bathroom. That's Tommy Shaw. JY, the Panazzos and the very, look, all I'm saying is I love Styx. Moving on. How about this one? Stephen Bishop, born on this day in 1951. Oh, Stephen Bishop sucks, dude. Stephen Bishop. First of all, who's Stephen Bishop? You know in Animal House, when Bluto, John Belushi, is coming down the steps and that dork is playing guitar? I gave my love a cherry. And then Bluto grabs the guitar and bashes it against, and he goes, sorry, man. That's Stephen Bishop. Stephen Bishop is the D-bag on the steps. Stephen Bishop wrote songs for movies. He worked very closely with film companies and all that stuff. And he had a couple of hits. Mostly they're associated with films. And they're the worst. So if you think Christopher Cross is lame, wait till you get a load of Stephen Bishop. It's the same kind of thing. It's like this like awful Air Supply, Christopher Cross, Stephen Bishop kind of thing. Okay, so one of his songs. Remember the theme song from Tootsie? Something's telling me it might be you. Something's telling me it might. Oh my God. Awful. Just like cringy. Oh, first of all, you shouldn't, you're lame. A girl could pull that song off like a seductress, kind of a thing. Maybe an ingenue could pull that off. Stephen Bishop. No, thank you. And what's the other one? The other one he did is, that one, down in Jamaica, they blur, 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 on and on, on and on, on and on. Oh, God. Cringy. Again, should have given it to a chick. You should have given those songs to a girl. Anne Murray would have sung the hell out of that. You know who could have used the follow-up? How about Pat Boone? Judy Boone. What was her name? Pat Boone's daughter. She had that one really awful song and then never found a follow-up. Stephen Bishop, you could have given her Something's Telling. Patty Boone. Debbie Boone. It's Debbie Boone. Thank you. All right, I got it. She could have used a follow-up. Debbie Boone could have gone from "You Light Up My Life," which is terrible. She could have gone right into "Something's Telling Me," but no. Stephen Bishop had to make that song. Sure, he made some money. Could have made Celine Dion money if they'd given it to the right person. It made some money, but it was just such a bad side. It's so schmaltzy coming out of his stupid head. I hate you, Stephen Bishop. I don't know why I have such anger for him. Born on this day in 1951. Born on this day in 1954, Condoleezza Rice. Whatever. Born on this day in 1964, The Greatness. Here's another one. Another big dude born on this day. You're telling me that JY? You're telling me that Ed White? You're telling me that Jimmy Pearsall and Patrick Warburton all born on the same day? My God. Papa got to write this date down because it's meaningful to me, apparently. Yeah, Patrick Warburton, Putty from Seinfeld. Love that dude. Love that dude. So I've told the story about how he was a regular guest on our show. And we named an award, the Patrick Warburton Manliest Man Award. So from time to time, my partner Kelly and I would come across a story where somebody just displayed a level of heroic that needed to be, called out. And whenever that person, at the end of it, we would say, and you are the proud recipient of the Patrick Warburton Manliest Man. Because if you remember Putty and all the characters that Patrick Warburton played, they were always very masculine guys. They were always, the man, on the surface, they were like John Wayne, but then you took a closer look and you're like, oh my God, that's just an act. He's a mess. That was Patrick Warburton. We loved him. So one year we were at the Grammys and we sat down and we interviewed with him. And then after, I think this might've been around the same time that I was getting salsa tutorials from Kim Kardashian in line at the buffet. So I see Patrick and I come up to him and I go, hey man, thank you. You're such a good sport. Because one of the other things that I always hammered him on was we would go and find his old pictures from International Mail. Do you remember the International Mail catalog from the 90s? I mean, it had to have been for gay men, I'm thinking, but any dude who bought a sweatshirt at the Gap was suddenly on a mailing list. So we would get this junk mail called International Mail. And it was always dudes in like mesh underwear. And so it's just very gay. I mean, look, nothing wrong with that if you are. But, I wasn't into it. Was junk mail to me. That's all I'm saying. But Patrick Warburton started his career as one of those dudes. So we used to always make fun of him. Anyway, he comes up to me. I'm like, all right. I went up to him and I said, thanks. I appreciate you being a big sport. He said, no, love it, man. Love it. You guys are my favorite radio show to do. And he goes, but I got to ask you. He goes, this trophy. I go, what's it look like? Like he thought it was a real trophy. I'm like, dude, it's not a real trophy. It's just we just pretend. He's like, there should be a real trophy. He goes, that would be fun. And maybe at the end of the year, I could present that year. And he's like doing bits with me. I'm like, I like the way you think. I'm going to go get in line with Stuart Copeland and Kim Kardashian because Kim's going to explain the difference to me between red and green salsa. I'm telling you, I got a book of stories. I got a book of crazy stories with celebrity encounters because I'm a nobody. I'm a fly on the wall. But, sometimes the fly lands in the room where a lot of interesting people are. I've got stories. They're not all as interesting as Kim Kardashian teaching me about the difference between red and green salsa or Patrick Warburton trying to brainstorm bits with me. But they're good. Happy birthday, Patrick Warburton. I love you. Oh my God. Here's another one. Here's another one with a story that I got loaded up. Happy birthday to Nina Gordon. Oh my God. She was one. I've talked about Nina before. I was more of a Louis. No, okay. So Nina Gordon is one of the two lead chicks of a really great band from the 90s called Veruca Salt. Nina Gordon and Louise Post. I worked at Q101 in Chicago at a very, very good timing. And I think that the timing of this is probably related. But there was a period of time in the early 1990s to the mid to late 90s where there was a bona fide Chicago music scene. And it was an alt rock music scene. And there were a lot of great acts coming out. Most notably, the critical acclaim of Liz Phair and the commercial success of Smashing Pumpkins, right? So they had all the bases covered. In between, you had everybody from, Urge Overkill, Material Issue, Stabbing Westward. I'm trying to think of who else did we have coming out of there. A lot of, I don't know, Fall Out Boy was on the horizon, ready to, ride the wake of that earlier generation. Point is this, there was a scene going on. And Chicago never had a scene. There wasn't. It was the Wicker Park scene. And there was a new alternative radio station. I don't know, some of you older people might remember, but younger may just take it for granted. Before about 1995, there was no such thing as alternative radio. There was classic rock, and then there was rock, and then there was rock. I mean, they didn't break it down into categories. It was only after the explosion of Nirvana in 92, 93 that radio executives started going, you know what? There's an entire demographic that only wants this kind of stuff. So that was the birth of alternative rock radio. Alternative rock radio started in earnest in Los Angeles. That was the first alternative rock station. They did about 6 months and started showing real revenue. So radio started going, let's put one in New York, one in Los Angeles, and one in Chicago. That was seen back then as how to cover the country. So they created an alternative station in New York and an alternative station in Chicago. Q101 was that station in Chicago. I happened to have just made the jump from another station to that new station. So I was there in the early days. Not the earliest of days. It'd been around for about a year or two, but it was still sort of becoming a thing. Now, my point is this, that scene that I spoke of in Chicago seems to have coincided with the rise in popularity of Q101. So the radio station did what it was intended to do, which is to build an appreciation for a genre of music that it had been called college rock before this. And it was only played on tiny 100-watt college dorm stations. You know, that was a whole... There was a chart and all that stuff for college rock, but alternative rock had finally broken through with Nirvana and all the Seattle stuff after that. And so they were looking for the next place. They went to Chapel Hill. They went to Austin. They went to Athens, Georgia. They went to all these places, and Chicago seemed to be one that was popping and making big money. In comes the rise of Veruca Salt, who was just one of my favorite bands from that early rise of these groups. Nina Gordon, Born on This Day, that's who Nina Gordon is. Nina Gordon and Louise Post. They were the two girls. I always, first of all, these were chicks. I think they were both probably a year or two older than me, and I'm just a producer on the alt rock station. And they're just neighborhood chicks who have a record that people in, California are listening to. They're not like rock stars, so I shouldn't be quaking. But man, they were so cool. They were so cool. There was this pack of chicks, and they were all cool, and they were all artsy, and they were all like, just, they'd pop up on MTV. That was a big thing back then. You'd be like, yeah, did you see her? I saw her on MTV last night, 120 minutes. It was Liz Phair, Nina Gordon, and Louise Post. Nina Gordon and Louise Post. It was also Darcy Retzky to an extent, but mostly she was from the Pumpkins. But mostly it was Nina Gordon and Louise Post. God, and I loved them the most. I mean, I loved Liz, like Liz Phair. I've told you about how she used to make me scared because she was the coolest chick I ever saw. And remember, I love that bitch vibe. Remember we were talking about how I love the bitch vibe? Oh, these alternative chicks in the 90s Chicago scene, they all had that bitch vibe. They all were like, don't talk to me. I got a brother who's a cop. They'll punch you in the face. They all had that vibe, which I thought was really cool. It's Nina Gordon's birthday. I love her. Good opportunity for those of you who are unfamiliar with the Veruca Salt to check them out. I might suggest Volcano Girls. I will start with their hits, Volcano Girls and Seether. Maybe those would be the two to start with. Born on This Day. God, had such a crush. Nina Gordon, 1967. Although not really. I liked Louise Post more. Louise was the cute one to me, and Nina was the one that was just scary. Like Nina was like, she's the one that would be mean. It seemed like Louise was the one with the kind smile that like you could break through, not Nina. But anyway, it's Nina's birthday. Happy birthday. Born on this day in 1972, Josh Duhamel. Boy, if ever there was a poor man's Timothy Oliphant, it's Josh Duhamel, is it not? Born on this day in 1975, Travis Barker. Isn't he supposed to be dead? Didn't he die in a plane crash and then rose from the ashes? Why isn't there an entire religion? Barkerist. I'm a Barkerist. Travis Barker, born on, now he's a Kardashian. Now he's married to a Kardashian. Isn't he? Something like that. All right, let's talk about this. Now we move on to the segment. This is quarter 3 of the show. We've done quarter 1, erstwhile on this day. Quarter 2, birthdays. Now we move into the deads. These are the people who have died on this day. We take a look at their life resume and decide, well, really, we just sit in judgment and decide whether or not they go to heaven or hell. Excuse me. Born on this day, or dead on this day in 1915. Well, they put him in hell because I'm a middle-aged white guy and I just don't want to wade into this. I don't know all that much about him. I know that he's a revered name, and I know that there's a really cool school of the arts here in Dallas named after him. Welcome to heaven, Booker T. Washington. Just going to put him in there. a middle-aged white guy ranting in the middle of the day is not going to but come on, like, I want that headache. Just fine. He's in, whatever. I don't know anything about him. I should. Sure. I should know more about American history in general. And Booker T. Washington and his story would probably fall under that umbrella. But I don't. But he's going to heaven because I think there's. Moving on. Dead on this day. Dead on this day in 2003. How about Gene Anthony Ray? Remember him? Leroy. Gene Anthony Ray. Look, yeah, hey, not for nothing. The only reason I was watching Fame as a kid, remember Fame, the TV show? Fame, I'm gonna live forever. It was a movie first. It was a movie. Fame. It was a movie. And it was such a big movie that it turned into a TV show. And Leroy was the star of the movie, but he also became the star of the TV. Was that Irene Cara? Okay, hold on. Wait a second. There was like this whole era of films, probably about an 18-month period. I'm guessing between like 1980 and 1981 into 1982. There was like this era where dancing came like dancing alone, like not even like that, like Dirty Dancing would come later. That was team, but like Flash Dance became a thing. And it was Irene Cara who sang "What a Feeling," right? That's Flash Dance. So Irene Cara sang "What a Feeling" in Flash Dance, but also starred as Coco in Fame. Oh man, it's all coming together now. Leroy was in both the movies. Leroy was in the movie and the TV show. Gene Anthony Ray played Leroy. He was the dancer. He was the black guy. He was the first dude with dreadlocks. So I was like, that guy doesn't seem scary or going to kill me. So I liked Leroy. And then Leroy did nothing. I thought Leroy's career was going to go somewhere. Gene Anthony Ray, no. Did he die? Is he alive or is he dead? No, he's alive. What happened to his career? Leroy from Fame. Seemed like that guy's got talent. Yeah, well, he couldn't commodify it. So moving on. Where are we putting him? Oh, hell. That's right. I'm putting Leroy in hell because I seem to remember like 10, 15 years after Fame, I remember some kind of like he did bad stuff maybe. Moving on. He's in hell anyway. Dead on this day in 2014. Glenn A. Larson. Now, Glenn A. Larson is a television producer. He died on this day in 2014. Glenn A. Larson, we're going to stick with one thing. He did a bunch of things, but here's the thing that he did. Best known for, created Battlestar Galactica. Now, many of you know that I consider, I don't know. Again, it depends on when you ask me, but I consider Battlestar Galactica, the 2004 television series, to be the greatest television series that was ever produced. The greatest story ever produced better than Game of Thrones, better than all that. But the greatest story done the best way, the direction, the mood, the angst that you feel with every ticking moment, every drip of water that you hear while stuck inside this dead in the water Battlestar that is just floating through the universe trying to avoid Cylons. Oh man, it's just good. It's good. Not only that, but in 2004, it was created specifically to be an allegory for what was happening in the Iraq War. They created that. They said, okay, so let's take the Iraq War and all the stuff that's actually happening in the world right now, and let's put it in space. And let's see if people get it. And people did. Multiple awards. It's one of the most revered shows of all time. We're talking about the 2004 version of Battlestar Galactica. Peabody Awards. Just Times best show of the year for 2005, Time Magazine, all that stuff. Battlestar Galactica, the 2004 version, is arguably and debated widely by people who know, could possibly be the greatest television show in history. It is certainly one of my favorites. It's one of those things that I re-binge every 5 years or so. I am in the middle of a hold on re-binging Battlestar Galactica because I want to re-binge it with my kid, and he's 14. He's not there yet. Like you gotta be smart to really. I'm not smart, but I'm smart. I'm TV smart. Okay, let's put it that way. Like you gotta be TV smart. Like you gotta be really into TV. And when you watch a TV show, right? Here's the trick with Battlestar Galactica, the 2004. Don't be distracted. Watch. Everything that you think might be boring in the moment is incredibly important for what's going to happen next. Just pay attention and your mind will be freaking blown. So Glenn A. Larson, he ain't that guy. The guy I've been talking about, the 2004 version, that's Ronald D. Moore. Ronald D. Moore is a genius, not Glenn A. Larson. Glenn A. Larson made the original Battlestar Galactica, the one from 1977. That's trash. That's garbage. That's stupid. They don't even try for a story. That was just some television studio going, hey, this Star Wars thing's really hot. We should do a space thing. And they went, let's get the guy from the Alpo commercial, Lorne Greene. Seriously, when you think of Battlestar Galactica, if you think of that 1977 syndicated series, you're doing yourself a great disservice because the 2004 Battlestar Galactica is up there with The Sopranos, Game of Thrones, and The Wire. And that is why Glenn A. Larson is going to hell. Yeah, we're going to put him in hell. He blew it. He blew it. He didn't see it the way Ronald D. Moore saw it. Loser. And yes, I am aware that I share this passion about Battlestar Galactica with Rainn Wilson's character of Dwight in The Office. I know that. They did that on The Office because the writers had obviously encountered other people like me who are this passionate about Battlestar Galactica. And they thought it would be funny that a show that almost nobody watched, because it was a, sci-fi or something. It was like a show that almost nobody watched had such passionate people who could break down each episode and say, okay, here's what he's really saying. All right, that's it. That's pretty much it, ladies and gentlemen. We have concluded the first 3 quarters of this show. It's time now to get into all the stuff that, makes this world chug. Let's get into the events that are shaping this day. Hot topics, current events, all of that stuff. Also, thank you so much to our executive producer of this here show, Peter L. He dropped the prize of the day yesterday into the chat charity box. That's right. You want to drop a little something, Venmo, Cash App, all that stuff. I'll put that up. The biggest tip of the day, and probably the only tip. We don't get tipped every day, but it is nice when we get them. It makes my day. It really does. It makes me go, oh, somebody cares about this nonsense. So if you are interested in being the executive producer for tomorrow's show, you can do it right there. You can just do it by outguessing what the next. By the way, I also want to thank my boy Frankie. Ooh, I see Frankie in the chat room. My boy Frankie drops a little something every time. Frankie's doing it in the incremental way, where every couple of days he drops a bone here, a bone there, 2 bones here, whatever it is. Thank you so much, Frank. It means a lot. It really does. All right, let's move forward. Let's talk about all of the things that are happening on this day. Quarter 4 begins now. Israel. We're starting with Israel. Big news, actually. Some big news coming out of Israel, or at least very promising news. Again, I'm going to say this about Israel. You want breakdowns of troop movements, you go somewhere else. You can have that. That's not what I do. I'm just going to tell you the world is talking about Israel. Here's pretty much the big thing that's happening in Israel today, okay? Israel is said to be days away from a hostage deal with Hamas. There is potentially on the table. Here's the deal that's on the table. Hamas, they're brokering this through a bunch of not badass cool. I mean badass. Let's call them bad assholes. Bad assholes in Qatar. They're terrorists. They're terrorists who live in Qatar, and somehow they've gotten themselves in a position where they can save the world, and it's going to be good for them. They don't really want to save the world. They would like to wipe the Jews out as well. But, they see an opportunity now to be the broker and maybe get a little bit of good faith from other people across the planet. So that's what's going on with these Qatar idiots. Don't think for a minute that they're good. They're not good. They wouldn't be in Qatar if they were good. Anyway. So the guys in Qatar are relaying messages between Israeli and American authorities and Hamas. Hamas is going to Qatar, and they're saying, okay, so it's telephone game. Basically, here's the deal that's on the table. Hamas wants a 5-day truce. They want 5 days of no more incursions, no more bombings. They want to be able to sort of, take a look at what they're dealing with over there in Gaza and make the appropriate plans. In return for the 5-day truce, they will return, is it 70 or 70? You know what? I'm just going to read it to you because this is kind of big, important details, I think. Israel days away from hostage deal. Hamas is wanting a 5-day truce. The truce should include a complete ceasefire and allow aid and humanitarian relief everywhere inside the Gaza Strip. Okay, let's see what we're doing here. Israel. I can't. Pop-ups. I can't take pop-ups. Israel, and I also can't take paying a subscription. So I guess I'm going to have to put up with the pop-ups. Israel and Hamas are close to reaching a deal to exchange Palestinian prisoners for Israeli women and children held hostage by Hamas in Gaza. Let's see here. The armed wing of the Palestinian terrorist group, Hamas, said on Monday that it told Qatari mediators the group was ready to release up to 70 women and children held in Gaza in return for a 5-day truce with Israel. Okay, so there we have developing ... That's what we're looking for. Also occurring right now, I don't have a TV in iShot. iShot, iView, iRange. Don't know. That's an interesting way to put it. Anyway, can't see a TV, so I don't know if they're covering this, but apparently there's a big rally going on in Washington right now on the mall in D.C. It is a march on D.C. for a pro-Israeli demonstration. They're expecting over 100,000 people. They're closing down all of the streets. Basically, they're all on alert because this is a very tense situation. And now a whole bunch of them, 100,000 people getting together. Who else is going to show up is the question, right? Like, is there going to be like a pocket of like Palestinian troublemakers show up? And then all of a sudden we're going to have Capitol Police and other law enforcement agencies are preparing for a very large pro-Israeli demonstration Tuesday on the National Mall that'll cause the street closures and restrict some access to avenues in the Capitol. The gates open at 10 a.m. for the protest. March for Israel, which is scheduled to begin at 1 o'clock. So, all right, so it started about an hour ago. They're expecting over 100,000 people are participated to attend the rally at the National Mall. Tuesday's demonstration will be met with a heightened security and police presence. All right, so I don't know if they're covering that. I don't know if anything's going on there. Wow. All right. So what's this, Jeff? Wow. So Restream won't let you say the H word, I guess. What's the H word? What the hell is the H word? There is no H. What do you mean H word? What is I don't know what the H word is. I'm pissed at Jeff. Here I thought Jeff knew everything about me and he questioned me, called me a poser for wearing my Columbia sweatshirt yesterday. So, what, did you go to Columbia? Yeah, I went to Columbia. I'm wearing my Columbia sweatshirt. Wow. All right. So I don't know what the H word is. Apparently, I don't know what that is. What did I say? Hamas? Is that the H word? What was I saying? Did I call somebody a homo? Yeah. And then Leslie's saying that's true. What is the H word? What is the next letter in the H word? That's what I would like to know. How about you? I have never heard the H word. I've never heard a word designated the H word, is what I could say. So I'm like, what is the most profane word that begins with H? Hamas. Okay, that's what Buttern is going with. Hamas? What do you mean? I can't say Hamas on Restream? What the hell are you talking about? What are you talking about? My post is gone. What's going on? What do you mean? What do you mean? So you're saying that your chat is being edited by Restream? Oh, great. That's how sensitive you are, that we, a show whose stated purpose is to not be politically divisive or needlessly focused on ginning people up. That's what we are. We're getting. What is going on here? Restream won't show the comment if that H word is in it. All right, I just put Hamas. It let me. Here, I'll even do this. Here, let me. All right. I don't know. Hamas sucks. Hamas rules. You guys are seeing this? Well, what do you mean it doesn't allow profanity? Of course it does. I've sworn. I have sworn on these things, and they don't edit it out. It's not missing. Oh, okay. Okay. All right. So what we're finding is that in the merged restream chat, it's fine. So Jeff's problem is with whatever he's watching on. Is he watching on YouTube? Because it might be YouTube that's not showing. Yes, YouTube is not showing my comments with it on your screen. Must be YouTube. Yeah. Look, I got a lot of problems with Restream. But my problems with Restream have to do with like just the ease of use and all that kind of thing. They seem like a pretty solid company as far as like, keeping their hands out of this nonsense. They don't really get involved. So that's why I stopped the show, because I was like, wait, Restream's getting involved in this nonsense? YouTube, I understand. YouTube, whatever. YouTube can do what they want. YouTube is where the money is made. They make the rules. What is YouTube? Google? So what are we dealing with? We're dealing with Larry and Serge over there. Yeah, those two D-bags. They think they're goddamn gods. They'll do whatever they want. All right, moving on. March on D.C. Big meeting between Big Joe meeting with G. Joe and G going to get together tomorrow in San Francisco. This is so I told you this like a couple of weeks ago when this was announced, because it was not expected. Remember, it was definitely not expected. We were not speaking, okay? So like America and China, we were not speaking. It wasn't a Cold War per se, but there were issues. There's some saber rattling going on through some puppet proxies and all that kind of stuff. It wasn't good. Our friends told us that China was seen out with Putin, and we were like, what? What do you mean? I hate that guy. It was like so there was weirdness between us and China. And then all of the sudden last week, it's announced through China, not the White House. China announces to the world that China wants to meet with America, that China wants to meet with Joe, that China is hoping that, we can restore relations. And I mean, it was a really big deal. And people were scratching their heads going, wait a second, why all of a sudden do the Chinese, why have the Chinese stopped acting like hard asses and are now acting like, hey, let's just talk about all this, man, before this gets crazy? Which I know we're programmed to be like, fuck them Chinese. But if we could just like remove that on the face, it's a very generous move. It's a move. It's an olive branch. It's an opportunity to move forward and maybe not be adversarial with the other country on this planet that is really powerful, right? We got some problem, human rights and all that stuff. Let's temper that down, and maybe they'll work with us on that. But look, all of these things, all of these problems that we have with China, or that China supposedly has with us, all of these things, they don't amount to a hill of beans if an all-out world war starts by a whole bunch of countries backed by both China and us. That's what we need to avoid, okay? So I'm sorry you are repulsed at the idea of how your cell phones are made. Can we move off that topic and try and stop nuclear war from starting in the Middle East? And if Joe and Xi Jinping in an unexpected surprise get-together can hammer something out that benefits all of us, come on, man, stop it. Who cares? China's Xi in need of a win and appears ready to engage openly and honestly with Biden. That's the headline from the Washington Post. Now, why is Xi Jinping president for life in China? Why is he in need of a win? Well, I'll tell you. And this is the really interesting thing that this Washington Post story tells us. Because we didn't understand. We're like, why all of a sudden is China being cool? Why all of a sudden does Xi Jinping seem like he wants to come to America and embrace Americanism? Because the people of China do. because Ping is starting to see that he's not all that popular with this saber rattling. He's starting to see that his government hanging out with the likes of Iran and Syria and Turkey and Russia and all that stuff, that's making the rank and file Chinese people go, oh, fuck. The people of China don't hate us. The people of China love fucking Fast and the Furious, and they all want to take a trip to Disney World one day. This is the same thing that we went through with the people of the Soviet Union. The people don't hate us. And if we can win over the world with the Fast and the Furious, if we can win over the world with Michael Jordan and the Bulls, if we can win over the world with whatever, Kanye, right? I think he might be putting out some scary, but that's how Americanism, that's how we have always contended that we will eventually win, by our values, by showing them how we live, how wonderful life in America and the American way of life can be. That's what we've always been about. The people of China, just like the people of the Soviet Union, the people of China know this. The people of China are like, do you know that 98% of people in China, 98% of the world's largest population, 98% of people in China have smartphones? When you think of the average person in China, I think that there is maybe this idea that they're basically no more than, they live in caves, just like we always like to think of that. The Chinese people are very modern. The Chinese people are very connected. And Xi Jinping likes the way the Communist Party is kind of taking over things, but he also understands that revolution is cyclical, and it happens. It's happened before in his own country, and that's what this is about. This is about Xi Jinping trying to do something on the huge global stage that tells all of his people that are starting to go, this guy might be fucking nuts. This guy might be aligning with the wrong people. It's telling his people that, hey, you know what? America's kind of cool. I'm just like you. And that's a win for us. It's a win for us. That's why, and he's not kissing ass. I don't want to say like he's kissing ass. He's just shockingly, China is just shockingly all of a sudden being really cool. We're really like welcoming, really like, can't wait to see you. Here's a little bit of the story from the Post. China's strongest leader in decades may be in his most vulnerable moment since coming to power 11 years ago. It could affect how Xi Jinping approaches President Biden on Wednesday during their first meeting in a year. For Xi, the meeting on the sidelines of the Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation Summit in San Francisco is a much-needed chance for him to show his own country and the world that he is a leader who can effectively manage China's most important relationship, that of one with the United States of America. And he will probably be eager to ease the tensions that have bubbled up in recent months, which are at their worst since the two countries normalized ties in 1979. Xi needs the summit more than Biden does. He needs to show that Biden respects him, that he has stature on the world stage, said Maxine Pei, a political scientist focusing on China-U.S. ties. He's definitely in a worse position than in November of last year. That was the last time they met. When the two leaders met before the Group of 20 summit in Bali last November, Xi was riding high. Coronavirus rules were being loosened and the Chinese economy was expected to pick up. Xi finally returned to the world stage after staying in China during the pandemic, meeting with more than 20 heads of state. The East was rising and the West, namely the United States, was in decline, or so the Chinese establishment thought. What a difference a year makes. While Xi's position and hold on power within the opaque party system do not appear to be in question, in October he secured a third term and stacked the party's top positions with loyalists. But he is now in the most challenging moment yet of his tenure. He experienced the largest street protests since 1989. Pro-democracy demonstrations, they all ended in blah, 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 blah. Anyway, we'll move on. So yeah, I mean, Xi Jinping is like, his people have kind of made him go, so you don't want me with Putin. You don't want me going to Iran. Like his people, and he seems to be like, okay. Now, he's a smart leader, and he's going to play all the parts of the outfield. But going from 2 weeks ago when we had Chinese military planes violating engagement rules and coming within, 250, some is whatever it was. I read the story earlier today. They were buzzing our planes, like saber rattling, like, so go ahead, fire at us, motherfucker, fire at us. That's what they were doing just weeks ago, China. And now it's like, hey, let's talk. Get some cheesecake. Remember, Xi loves cake. Xi loved the cake at Mar-a-Lago. Remember that? When he came to Mar-a-Lago, he's like, cake. And then they did the documents right there in front of all the people. It's crazy. Anyway, it's very interesting to see how this goes. And it's not going to be interesting like tomorrow night at 8 o'clock. It's not going to be breaking news. The summit was interesting. No, it's not. See, this does not feed our need for instant news gratification. The interesting thing that is going to happen tomorrow will be played out over the course of the next 10 years. That's what's interesting about what is talked about tomorrow, how this affects us and our relations with China, who, look, man, I want to be friends with China. I want them. I would rather have them as somebody who we could go to and say, hey, man, come on, you can side with us on this, and not have to worry about them going to, because look, every bad actor on the globe or on the planet that we get sideways with, the first thing we do is we worry dude's going to run to Putin or dude's going to run to Ping, right? We worry about that. It'd be nice to eliminate the Chinese. It'd be nice to have the Chinese on our side. Wall Street, what's going on with Wall Street? Apparently Wall Street was booming earlier today. Let's see where they're at now. They were up almost 600 points, I think. The last time I looked at it. The Dow Jones Industrial Average, as I speak, it's up 460. Okay, so it's coming down a little, up. Let's do it one more time. Up 460. You know, we like to do this when there's volatility in the markets. I like to refresh 457. We're up 457. Okay. Let's do it one more time. 454. We're down. You know, where are we at? 452. Oh, that's unfortunate. Let's do it one more time. We're crashing. 451. We're crashing. 451. At 456. Okay, we're going back. See, this is the stock market. So anyway, apparently the stock market's been rebounding on here's the headline. Wall Street rebounds mightily on word of inflation's decline. Shut up, inflation's decline. Shut up, man. Gas is still stupid expensive. You know, these guys, they all sell it. What did the interest rate on a $50 billion loan come down a tick, and now we're all supposed to celebrate that? Do you know what a gallon of gas costs? I don't care about your interest rates on your $50 billion hedge fund gambit loan bullshit. Dude, so you know last week how I watched We Crashed, which is the story of WeWork. It's like a mini series about WeWork. It was really good. I know April said she tried to watch it. She didn't dig it, but whatever. It was good. I thought it was good. And I think it's interesting to see how these stories of these companies that we know and that are successful and that made these people instant billionaires. He was a food delivery man until he invented a new way to sneeze, you know, and then suddenly he's a billionaire. So I'm interested in those stories. So I watched the We Crash thing, and it was good. I really enjoyed it. Oh my God, Jared Leto and Anne Hathaway are so amazing. Highly unlikable people in this show, but good. It's good. I enjoyed it. So that was the story of WeWork. Which famously was a Wall Street tech unicorn. Although it wasn't tech. That was kind of the problem with it. It was not tech, but they tried to fool everybody and say, we're tech, man. And they weren't tech. WeWork. They were Office Space. Anyway. So I watched the one on WeWork. And then I switched over. I started watching it on Friday evening. My kid fell asleep. On Friday evening, we started to watch Django. He fell asleep. And so I watched, I started a new one, Super Pumped. Have you seen Super Pumped? Super Pumped is on Netflix. I'm like 4 episodes into Super Pumped. Super Pumped is the story of Uber. It's how Travis Kalanick kind of, created Uber. I mean, really it just started because he was a party boy who hung out in bars and shit, and he didn't want to get DUIs. So he basically invented, man, what do they say? Necessity is the mother of invention. He needed a sober ride home, and he came up with Uber. Uber, of course, became a unicorn on Wall Street, a tech unicorn, one of those businesses believed at their inception to eventually, and possibly at their inception, be worth over $1 billion. That's a unicorn. Both, incidentally, WeWork and Uber were considered unicorns. Anyway, so I'm like 4 episodes in, and I may never take Uber again in my life. I may go straight up Lyft from here on out, because they portray the guy who plays the founder of Lyft, John Zimmer, I think is his name. He is so much cooler and just so much more decent than the guy who started Uber. The guy who started Uber, who, by the way, is portrayed by Joseph Gordon-Levitt, terrific actor. He plays Travis Kalanick. And also you get Coach Taylor. Yeah. Coach Taylor, Friday Night Lights. He plays John, what's his name? He's a big hedge fund investor who was first in on Uber. Anyway, you get Coach Taylor. You got the kid from Third Rock from the Sun who grew up to be a good actor. It's a good show. It's good. But I will never, Uber, man, those people suck. The Uber people suck. Dude who founded that company absolutely sucks. That's the character that Joseph Gordon-Levitt. Now, the question is, who do I want to be stuck on an Uber with? Who do I want to be stuck in an Uber with more? Travis Kalanick, the guy who started Uber, or the dude from WeWork, whose name I can't remember, and it's probably good because I don't need to occupy space with that D-bag's name. Oh, they were both the worst. I don't know. Moving on. Anyway, Wall Street's having a good run today, so hey, rich people getting richer. Donald Trump's sister died. Donald Trump's sister, Marianne Trump, she was a federal judge. She died. She was found dead in her Upper East Side apartment. She was 86 years old. I don't know anything about her. All I know is that President Trump from time to time would talk about, my sister's a federal judge. And then we heard the tapes of his sister talking about him. She didn't like him. She was, okay, so here's the problem with the Trump family's interesting. Trump family's interesting because, Trump has a sister and a brother and another brother, and the one brother died of, being a drunk or something, 30 years ago. He died young, being an addict, which is supposedly why Trump doesn't drink or anything, which is a good lesson. It's nice to learn that lesson. But the one who died had a daughter, and that daughter is Mary. Mary's the troublemaker Trump. Mary Trump, she's like, I hate my Uncle Donald. She's like that one who does all that stuff. So drunk brother has Mary. Mary is actually named after Marianne, the sister who died yesterday. Marianne Trump, Donald Trump's sister. So Mary is her niece and her namesake. So Mary Trump is the namesake and niece of Judge Marianne Trump. Now, that explains why there was a level of comfort. Because what Mary Trump did to her old aunt, I just think is reprehensible. I have no idea that Judge Marianne Trump wanted her opinion of her brother to be made public. But man, that scandalous ass bitch, Donald Trump's niece, Mary Trump, she recorded her. She recorded her old aunt talking shit on Donald. And why? Well, because apparently they were really close. Mary Trump, the troublemaking niece, was really close to Donald Trump's sister, her namesake, and Aunt Marianne. So, it was all that stuff. It's years old. But, she's like, he's unprincipled. I did all his homework. He's stupid. He lies so much. And all of those were the things that she said. You can read them or whatever, but she's dead. What I'm hung up on in that story isn't someone, who cares what she said, families, they have issues, whatever, I don't know. Well, nobody knows him better than a sister. Yeah, and nobody wants to say the harshest things that no one else would say more than the sister, right? The sister is going to go for the jugular and maybe exaggerate. I don't know. I'm not saying she's not telling the truth. I'm saying let's not get bogged down in the relationship between him and his sister. Let's talk about the relationship between the aunt and niece. The niece is named after the aunt. The niece is writing a book about what a dick her Uncle Donald is. The niece goes to this aunt who's her namesake, who they apparently have a very close relationship, and secretly records the aunt talking shit on Donald. Now, you might say, well, that's how she really feels. I don't give a shit. What kind of family are we dealing with here? A bunch of goddamn barracudas at every level. You do that to your aunt. She's a freaking judge. It's got to be illegal. I don't know. Anyway, Marianne Trump, Donald Trump's sister. She was a judge. Seemed fine. I don't know. What do I know? I don't know. I think the family's awful. She might have been awful. They are probably all awful. Certainly Mary Trump, who secretly recorded her aunt. And again, if you think that that's fine because you don't like Donald Trump and you like what you heard, you're not a serious person. A serious person goes, yeah, that's probably all true, but fuck, man. That's a harsh betrayal from a niece to an aunt and an old lady aunt who'd be dead within a couple of years. Whatever. We got a Mary that's crying in Mexico. Just any of you guys are heading down to Mexico, there's a statue of Virgin Mary that's crying down there in Mexico. It's in some weird little village church, and it's crying tears. And hundreds of people have been making this pilgrimage now for a couple of days, and they're really starting to ring the coffers for it. There's a whole industry that's starting up. But here's the problem. There's a whole lot of people down there who have an explanation as to why the Virgin Mary is crying. And they're calling it out, and the church is like, shut that person up. Basically, they're like, it's crying because it's filled with water, because somebody pricked the back of it. You filled it with water. It's a waterproof paste. It's hollowed out. What happens is you fill it with water, and then over the course of maybe a year or two, the water will seep to the surface and it will begin to protrude out of any blemishes that appear in the statue. So all one would have to do would be take a pin and prick right under the eye of the statue where the teardrops would be. And then suddenly the condensation from inside the statue will come out of that hole. And you got a crying Mary. There's news reports down there. They're like, well, this is how it's being done. Here, we'll show you how it's being done. They're doing, and yet people are still buying plane tickets and flying to see this thing. It's been called out. They're like, we know how you do this. This is an old trick. And the dude's like, shh, these people are paying to see this. Crying Mary down there in Mexico. Book your plane tickets if you're so inclined. Let's see. What do we have here? What else? Yeah, God, I don't want to do this story. I'll do this story. Here's a fun story. Okay, this is a good one. I may bring, hey, Jeff. There's a warning for you, Jeff. I know Jeff doesn't like when I do things on the 9 o'clock show that I do here on the 12. I might bring this story back because it's a Florida story and I might want to give it to James, but got to worry about the judgment from Jeff. There's a fly in here. Why is there a fly in here? What's the weather like? Because it looks nice and sunny, but I also have the heat on. So that's telling me maybe it's cold. Let me see. What are we rocking here in North Texas? 68 degrees. 68 degrees ain't bad. 68 degrees is pretty great. But here's why I'm not satisfied with the 68 degrees. How come we didn't get 2 weeks of between 75 and 85? How come we didn't get that? How come we went straight from, it's going to be 105 again? How come we went straight from that into 68? I wouldn't, there's no transition period. There was no transition period. Do you remember? Do you remember how we went from one day the air conditioning was on because it's gonna be over 100 again today, and it was over 100, and then the next day it dropped down to 45, and we all got our heat going, and everybody's going, "What's that smell?" Because you haven't used your heat yet, and then we had no transition climate here in North Texas. It went straight from 300 straight days of 150 degrees. Right to, yeah, maybe you should take a jacket. It went straight to that. So anyway, here's a story down there in Florida. A couple arrested for fully nude Florida frolic in the middle of the road. That's right. There was a causeway, a road. They got these medians on them. Hey, I don't think we have medians like that here in Texas. I was noticing that the other day. Where I learned how to drive, you got medians. You got full on cement raised little medians that separate the directions of the road. If you're going northbound and the other lanes are going south, there's a median in between there. We got them here. I know you got them here. But here's the thing. People in Chicago and Illinois might appreciate this. People in Texas are going to be like, what's wrong with our medians? It's not that there's anything wrong with them. They're just useless because they're all grass. They cover here the medians are grass. Where I come from, the medians are cement, and you're allowed to pull up on them and make left turns into parking lots, and you're allowed to cross over traffic. It's just so much more convenient. But you know what we don't have? Here's the trade-off. We don't have U-turns. First time 20-something years ago when I came to Dallas, man, and I'm like in a car with somebody, and they were like, "What, U-turn?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm looking around for cops." Because, yeah, I mean, of course, you have made U-turns in Chicago, but they're illegal. Can't make a U-turn. Here in Dallas, everything's a U-turn. Make a U-turn, flip a bitch. And I was like, wow, that's different. But because you can make U-turns, that's why they don't have to allow you to cross over on the median. I just miss the median is what I'm saying. I was driving. I was trying to turn into a Chipotle. And I was like, I got to go all the way up to the end of the block and then make a U-turn and come all the way back. Why can't I just turn in? Why? Because the median isn't a median. It's just a big giant grass. And there's a fire hydrant right there for some reason. They're not encouraging us. Anyway, they got one of them causeways in Florida with a median down the middle. It's like a cement median right down the middle. And cars are whipping back and forth 55 plus miles per hour. Vroom, vroom, both directions. It's 9 o'clock at night on a beautiful Florida Friday. And we got these two. We got two old people. Yeah, they're old people. He's 57. She's 60. And they get totally butt naked and they run out to the median and they start doing it right there, right in public. Cars are whipping by, going at it. He was laying down. She was on top of him. That was only in Florida. Dateline, after being caught having fully nude sex on a Florida causeway in front of children and other witnesses, a woman told cops, "It was always a dream of mine to engage in such a public tryst." The male companion showed zero remorse when arrested. After receiving multiple 9/11 calls around 9 p.m. Friday, sheriff's deputies responded to the causeway in Dunedin, a Gulf Coast city, and discovered a couple having fully nude sexual intercourse in the presence of the victims, which included a pair of juveniles. On the side of the causeway, cops found Sarah Fazikis. Oh, I'm sorry, I had it wrong. All right, so the woman was 57. Okay, on the 55. On the side of the causeway, cops found Sarah Fazikis, 55, and Robert Clark, 60, fully nude on top of one another. A witness described the pair's encounter as crack to sack. They were crack to sack. While being taken into custody, Fazikis stated, this is the chick, while being taken into custody, Fazikis stated, "This was always a dream of mine," referring to having sexual intercourse on the causeway. A deputy, surrounded by water, the causeway offers spectacular views of St. Joseph Sounds. So it's a beautiful place. She always wanted to do it there. Along with an exposure of sexual organs count, Fazikis was hit with a felony narcotics charge after cops found clonazepam inside an Altoids container in her purse. Yeah, that's the problem. So, like, if you're like legal, like if you like legally take something like that, clonazepam in this case, you got a purse. It's in the bottle, because you don't expect to get in trouble because you're not a dirtbag. You're just someone who takes this pill and the doctor prescribed it and you went to the pharmacy and you got it and it's in the purse. And it looks, when you start stashing pills, like rando pills inside like Altoids shit, cops are going to ask you questions. They're going to be like, what is this about? Well, it's more convenient. Shut up. No, it may be more convenient, but if you ever get stopped and a cop goes through your purse, you're going to want to have the prescription for those pills. Take the bottle with you, idiots. Clark is a registered sex offender. He's the dude. So you want to know what kind of people do this? Well, a chick who's like bennied out on clonazepam and a dude who's a registered sex offender. That's what we're dealing with. Clark is a registered sex offender who pled guilty in 2009 to a federal child porn charge. Okay. Thought maybe he was a rapist. I don't know. We had to go into the really dark part of his life. So he's a kiddie porn guy who's out there having sex in front of a bunch of kids. At the time of his arrest, Clark was a civilian Department of Defense employee stationed in Japan. This is when he was arrested for child porn. A search of his work computer turned up a series of illicit images, which Clark admitted he viewed for self-gratification. What? this guy needs to go to the Pete Townsend School of Perversion. That is not the answer one gives. I don't care what you got to be. Look, far be it from me to want pedophiles to have like, the proper answers. But you don't say that, yeah, I did it, and it was because it was hot. You don't say it. That's what he said. He admitted he was gratified by it. You got to go, yeah, I said it. It's because it's such an awful thing. I thought I'd do some research. I'm thinking about. That's the Pete Townsend School of Defense. Pete Townsend set his computer to be fixed at a local computer place, and the local computer place were like, hey, it's Pete Townsend's computer. Let's crack it open and see what's in there. And they found some like sketchy ass. I don't want to overstate it because I don't know that it was full blown, but they found some sketchy ass stuff that they wanted to talk to Pete about. So the dude called the police, and the police were like, Pete, we want to talk to you about this stuff on your computer. And Pete said he was doing research. It's like, yeah, I was doing research. I'm going to write a song about the traumatization of childhood. Yeah, that kind of thing. He went there, and everybody bought it. And it was like, all right, not this guy. This guy's asked the exact same question. He goes, because it's hot. Why did you look at child porn? Because it's hot to me. I know that's weird. Sorry. Clark is a registered sex offender who pled guilty in 2009 to a federal child pornography charge. At the time of his arrest, Clark was a civilian. Turned up on his work computer. Clark admitted he viewed for self-gratification. After copying to the felony count, court records show that Clark contended that the child porn images were to him a fantasy world. Shut up, dude. Shut up. It was a fantasy world, and that he would never cross the line to hurt any child. Well, good. You understand that, like the rest of us, that goes without saying. Like, we don't have to have that on a business card. Hi, Pugs Moran would never do anything to harm a child. The rest of us, it's assumed. But because you found yourself in this weird position, you've got to state, I mean, I'm just fantasizing about sex with children. Oh, God. Yikes. All right, so there you go. Those two, they had sex. This is what we find out about them. I'm going to present this to James. You might want to do a Florida couple of the year. I don't know. I don't know how that works. Melatonin is trending. You guys like melatonin? I love melatonin. I say every night I say a nice little prayer for my good friend Ed Silla, who turned me on to melatonin. I had been one of these, for years and years. Can we be honest about this? 30 years? A good 30 more, 40 years. Holy shit. 35 years. Let's go 35 years. For 35 years, every single night, I took 2 Tylenol PMs or a Sominex or some form of acetaminophen laced with diphenhydramine, whatever that combination is. 35 years, every night before I went to sleep, that's what I took. And then Ed comes along and he's like, you want to try these little things? There's like these, I don't know. Ed's like, happening trendsetter guy. So he probably bought something. He probably buys shit at GNC, right? I buy all my, where I buy my vitamins? Dollar Tree. People who go to GNC, different kind of person. So he found something. He's like, here, I want to give this to you. You're going to like it. You're going to get off the Tylenol PMs. So I took it, and it was fantastic because, of course, it was. Whatever it was that he gave me was fantastic. It worked better. I had a better night's sleep. And I didn't have the worries. It was all natural and organic. I didn't have the worries of what are all of these crazy Tylenol chemicals that I've been pumping into my liver for the past 35 years nightly. So I'm like, I want to stop. So he hit me to this new stuff, and I liked it. And then I'm like, oh, it's all gone. And I go to like get new stuff. I'm like, I gotta get more of that. And it's like $49.99 for 30 pills. And I'm like, 30 pills, that's 2 weeks. I'm like, I'm not gonna spend, you know what I'm saying? I spent like $3 for a jar of Tylenol PM. Are you kidding me? So I looked at what this was that Ed had suggested I get. And it turns out I'm looking at the ingredients. It's all melatonin. It's just all melatonin. So from that moment, I switched over to melatonin, and I've been getting these melatonin gummies from Kroger. I take 2 of them every night before I go to bed, and I am just sleep of the angels. I've just been having the greatest sleep. It is so much better. It's mind-blowing when you're dependent on something and skeptical of anything that could replace it. The way that I was dependent upon Tylenol PM and just kind of would furrow my brow at anybody that said, what's better than that? I'd be like, Ambien, because I did Ambien too. Ambien's not good. Well, here's the thing. Ambien's great. Ambien might be my favorite pill ever. Ambien. But here's what I was doing with Ambien. I would take the Ambien, and then if you don't fall asleep in like a half hour after taking the Ambien, you are in for a roller coaster ride for the next 4 hours. So I would take the Ambien at like 8 o'clock at night with the intention of pushing through the first, you're going to want to go to bed. Don't go to bed. I would push through, because once you push through that initial, you're getting tired from the Ambien. Once you push through that, woo! I mean, it's good times. And it's the best of good times, because the trick with Ambien is you don't remember it. You remember none of it. When you finally do go to bed and you wake up, you're like, that was a completely normal night. And then you go and you look and you're like, holy shit, I painted my living room last night. You don't remember it. So I did Ambien, but I can't do Ambien. Ambien, I just felt the way I loved Ambien. I felt that there was too much temptation to like take it at noon on a Sunday while watching football, right? It's too much. No. So I got into melatonin. I freaking love melatonin, you guys. If you guys are having trouble sleeping, I highly recommend melatonin. What is melatonin? Melatonin is a natural hormone that we have. Melatonin is a hormone that is in our brain that when the sun goes down, this is how the human body works. When the sun goes down, our brain senses that there is no longer light, and that this in this cycle means that the body should begin to shut down and rest. At that point, the brain, it spits out melatonin. And that's when you, watching TV at 10:30 at night, start to go, I just got tired all of a sudden. That's your natural body melatonin. Now, for people who have difficulty sleeping, and many of us do, I do. I mean, listen to me talk. That's just what I'm able to articulate. Imagine what's going on in this head. I mean, it's so when I finally go to bed at night and I lay down and I put the pillow and I'm laying there, it's that. So I need something. It would literally take me 2 hours. I will lay in bed for 2 hours without any I will lay there for 2 hours before I will fall asleep. So melatonin really works. The problem with melatonin here is that now apparently they're saying that kids are taking a whole lot of melatonin. Oh, shit. Hold on. Wait, where's the story? So I did all of that and now I can't find it? Oh, my goodness. Anyway, there's a study out that says that melatonin might not be so great. Parents are giving it to their kids because it's always been thought to be a natural hormone and completely fine. And they're like, yeah, but maybe if the kids are going through puberty, you should wait because their brain is still regulating the amount of melatonin that body particularly needs. And they're saying that if the kids aren't fully grown, the brain isn't really doling out the proper natural amounts if you're supplementing it. Like if the kid is 9 years old and you're giving them a couple of melatonin, the brain is going to go, okay, this growing body is already got the melatonin, so I don't have to give that much. So it might kind of make them dependent on it and could screw up other things and all that stuff. So anyway, if you're giving your kids melatonin, maybe don't. I don't know. I lost the story. Maybe don't. Maybe Google it. Maybe if it's something that you're like, Pugs said something about this and I give my kid, I do gummies. Can I tell you, the Kroger brand melatonin sleep gummies that I take are delicious. That's the other problem. They're really good. They're really good. It's good candy. It's good. I'm sorry. It'd be good candy. If it was just a bag of gummy bears flavored like these little Kroger melatonin gummies, I would eat that. They're delicious. They don't taste at all like medicine. Nothing. They taste exactly like, I think the ones that I got are berry. So it tastes like berry gummies. They're like fruity and sweet and a little sour. They're delicious. Anyway, but don't kids, because your brain. That's it. So tonight when your kid goes, Mommy, can I have my melatonin? Say no, kid, because your brain. And that's it. We'll just leave it at that. Iceland is in the news. Anybody a fan of Iceland? I'm a huge fan of Iceland. You guys know this. Iceland, you ever been? Simply must go. Fantastic place. Fantastic moonscape. If you want to go to the moon, but you don't like to travel that far, you can go to Iceland. And you can stand in any number of places in Iceland and just spin around 360 and go, holy shit, this is probably what the moon looks like. Because it's a volcanic island, right? So that's all it is. So it's just nothing but craters and desolate. There's no green. It ain't green. Well, there are parts that are green in Iceland, like Reykjavik and all that area. And there's some beautiful waterfalls and natural wonders and gorgeous. But the bulk, like if you're going onto the outback of Iceland, it's moonscape. It's really crazy. Well, I love Iceland, and I love the people in Iceland. And when I was in Iceland, I was Birgit was a girl that I met there, Birgit, and we were having breakfast. And I said to her, I go, what is this? What is this like vibe of you people? You people are so right. When new friends, they always like to be called you people. But I was like, you people, you're all so happy. I go, did you all like this is so joyous? And you know what she said to me? She goes, yeah. She goes, we are a nation of people who have decided to build our lives on top of an active volcano. We know that any minute it can all be over. And I went, wow. Go, that's absolutely true. Because Iceland is built on an active volcano. And there's never really been any doubt that thing's probably going to go off again. I mean, the reason the place looks like a moonscape is because it's gone off before. And it's, and the only problem is now we got modern times and there's airports and suburbs and glass buildings and downtowns and, stuff like that. Not to a great extent because it's Iceland. And part of the charm of Iceland is that its dependence on isolation, or at least the idea that it's isolated. But Reykjavik is a very modern European city. Reykjavik's a very cool city. So yesterday, 2 days ago now, a giant crack just ripped through the center of Iceland, like right through it. Like there have been 700 earthquakes now in the last 48 hours, which isn't 700's a lot, but earthquakes are not uncommon. You can have an earthquake a day but the combination of this giant crack that ran, there's some video here. Show you. Let me see if I can show you this video. Because it just shows one just rando Icelandic town where the crack just is ripping through the parking lot. And I'll get to why this is important. Well, I mean, I'm sure that you took what I've said already and went, yeah, Pugs, we got you. We can guess why this is probably important. What with you saying that it's a nation built on top of an active volcano and now suddenly there's 700 earthquakes in a giant. Yeah, we can guess. We know what's coming next. Here, let me show you this. All right, they want to know my location. That's fine. Daily Mail. I don't have a problem with you wanting to know my note. All right, is this it? Yeah. There we go. There's video. And they're more than likely going to make me watch a commercial first. Yes, they are. They most certainly are. All right, here. Yeah, I'll show you this. All right, so this is just one view of the giant crack that suddenly appeared. What? You can't pause? All right, here you go. I don't know. I don't think there's sound on this, but here you go. All right. So how well can let's make it bigger? All right. I'm going to go back to the beginning. You can see it runs through. I mean, I guess you could be like, well, what was there before and what was there? But you can see there's obviously a big giant crack. You see a person walking there, so you get an idea of the scale and the size of this thing. So this has people concerned in Iceland, and the scientists are saying, okay, here we go. Iceland is on edge, waiting for volcanic eruption amid fears rivers of lava could hit power plants after giant cracks tear through towns. Thousands are evacuated and over 700 more earthquakes have occurred since yesterday, with unholy sounds emanating from holes in the earth. Holy fuck. How's your day going up there in Farmers Branch? I mean, there are people sitting there somewhere, and all of a sudden, they're in front of a window like I am, and they just hear, And they're just like, working at their kid. What the fuck is that? There's just a giant hole bellowing from, shit's going on. Let's see here. More than 500 quakes have been recorded in the Reykjanes Peninsula alone. Let's see here. Iceland is on the edge, as experts say earthquakes that have been rumbling beneath the surface for days now and have torn through towns are a precursor to what experts believe is a large-scale volcanic eruption. More than 700 quakes have been recorded in the southwestern Reykjanes. I'm going to call it the Reykjanes Peninsula since yesterday. And despite them being slightly weaker than in previous days, guys, I forgot about this. There is no way to pronounce Icelandic words. I mean, the name of this volcano, like I was just stopped dead. Like I already had trouble with the Reykjanes Peninsula, and I know what Reykjavik looks like and how it's pronounced. So I got like half the word there. I know what the root word is there. Reykjanes Peninsula. I got that. But now they want to talk about the volcano that they think is going to erupt. You know what this thing is called? Check out this name. The name of this volcano, Fagradalsfjall. Fagradalsfjall. I'll spell it for you. Fagrad. 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 Fagradals. Fagradals. F. And then just if you got cocky, J. That's right. FJ. What does an F and a J sound? What is that? ALL. Fagradal volcano. They're waiting on it to erupt. Iceland has been shaken by thousands of tremors over the past few days with at least... Anyway, keep an eye on our friends in Iceland. Some shit's going to go up. Remember the last time? Now, this is why they're concerned, because the last time one of their big old volcanoes went off, it wasn't a lava eruption, which they were very happy for. It was just smoke. But don't you remember what happened like 5 years ago? When the volcanic, it shut down plane travel across the globe. Planes couldn't cross the Atlantic because of the volcanic soot. It was like flying in. Yeah. So, there's all kinds of things that could happen here. All right. But least of which is that, the whole thing could just go into the water. I mean, look at it on a map. It's a volcano that is submerged, but they're just living on the slopes of a volcano. That's what Iceland is. Yeah, I know. Well, it was cheap. The land was cheap. Nobody was there. It seemed free to the taking. They didn't learn about the volcano until years later. They had already built stores. They're like, well, what are we going to do? A dude came to town. This is a giant volcano. What? Huh? Let's see. Here's a fun story. This is a fun story that is not a fun story because it might make me have to tell a story that I don't know that I necessarily want to tell, but I'm so poorly disciplined when it comes to this streaming and talking. I may just tell this story anyway. So let's see where this goes, huh? So there's a list out of I don't know if you know this, but I'm working on a podcast, a secret podcast program called Pup Life. Sorry, it's Pup Life. It's a dog podcast, the dog enthusiasts. We talk about dog issues and all that kind of stuff. It's not intended for everybody, but it's for doggy people. And I've been doing interviews with people. I had a great long form sit down interview with Richard Hunter last night. I talked to him about his work in dog advocacy circles, and he told us the whole from beginning to end of the Michael Vick story about him and his dogged pursuit of chasing down Michael Vick across the country and calling him out. And Dick, of course, took one of Michael Vick's dogs that Michael Vick didn't get to kill and murder. Took one of his dogs, Mel, raised him as his own. We all knew Mel. Anybody who listened to Dallas-Fort Worth radio. Probably maybe you went to a Richard Hunter appearance and you saw Mel just walking around, the poor little abused pit bull. So anyway, we do this dog cast and I find all of this stuff and here we go. I'm putting this show together and this comes off the headlines today. And I'm like, I might use this on the dog cast, but here's what it is. It is a study. It's important people. When a study finds important people, scientists, where is this? Michigan State University Michigan State University actually spent money to try and figure out which breed of dog is the most cuddly. Do you like a cuddly dog? Cuddly dogs. Cuddly dogs are the best, man, but they're not very common. I know that we want to believe that they're common. Most of the times when a human wants to snuggle with their dog, they're like, come here, baby, come here. Maybe they got to rattle a bag or make the dog think there's something in it for them. And then they pull the dog on top of them, and maybe the dog will lay on them for a second. But very quickly, the dog's going to be like, I got to get up. This is not my thing. That's most dogs. There are the occasional dog that is just the snuggle hound who just for some, I don't know, maybe something happened when he was a baby. I don't know, but they are so dependent on the people with them that they constantly have to be touching them or constantly have to be near them or snuggling. So some people like that. Some people don't. I happen to love the snuggle hound. I have a snuggle hound. My son was talking, he said it over the weekend, he said he's never seen a dog that is more insanely affectionate than this crazy, awful monster of a beast, CeeLo. She is so incredible. She's big. She doesn't know she's this big. She thinks she can just climb up on anything and sit in your lap. Like she doesn't. And I know why they do it because I've looked into it. I'm like, why is she like this? Why is she doing that? And it's a part of her instinct. She can only become, she's a herding animal. She's used to being in charge of an area and the things in that area. And she wants to, when it's time to sleep, we say she's a snuggler when she sleeps, but it's not really about that so much. It's because when we sleep, she wants us accounted for. We're her herd. She needs to know where we are. And if she wants to fall asleep, she would like to maybe fall asleep with a part of her hand on you so that if you move, she'll wake up and she'll know. Like that's the instinct. That's why these dogs tend to be more cuddlers. And that's the instinct as to why my stupid dog who bit somebody over the weekend. Yeah, she bit somebody over the weekend. It was awful. She's so aggressive. Can't go to dog parks. Can't go. Ooh. Anyway, I love her because I'm like me and my son and Emil are like the only person on the planet that she loves. Everybody else she's got a problem with. And in the grand scheme of things, it's not funny at all. In the grand scheme of things, that means there's a heartbreaking moment looming out there. I don't know what that heartbreaking moment is. That heartbreaking moment might be when we just say she can't be in civilized company. She can't. We can't live with an animal like this who every time somebody steps into the house, we're going to have to tackle her on the step. It's just, that's not fun. It's not fun. Ugh. Anyway, the cuddle dog. She's also a cuddle dog. Yeah, I'm talking about you. Now she just poked her head out of the room. She's like, talking about me? I'm like, yeah, I'm talking about you, you jerk. I love her. And I love her because she is so affectionate. And I love her because she does what a lot of other dogs don't do. My dog, if I'm being honest about my favorite dog of all time, my favorite dog of all time was my dog Blue, who was a Husky Timberwolf hybrid. And she was my girl, man. She was more like she like had my back. She was also a little aggressive, but friendly with people. Like she was cool with people. You come over to the house and all that stuff, but she was a great watchdog. Blue was not affectionate. Blue was my kid. That's what my kid said this weekend. He goes, Dad, was Blue like this? I don't remember. I'm like, no, Blue was not like this. Blue was, she'll make sure she knows where you are, and then she's going to go and she's going to lay about 10 feet away from you in a corner so that her back is protected and she can see all the entrances. That's how dogs think. This one's cuddly. This one's great. Catahoula. Cuddle hounds, man. They need belly rubs. They need scratch behind the ears, and they need to fall asleep touching you so that if you get up and are in any danger, they'll wake up immediately and be like, let's go. That's why they do it. Anyway, yeah, some of these things I know. You're like, Pugs, what do you know? Well, I'm just seriously talking to a lot of experts and stuff about dog behavior for this podcast. We've been recording it now for months. I mean, we got all kinds of stuff. I'm learning a lot about dogs. Certainly now I'm a dog enthusiast. I don't call myself a dog expert. I don't know. I'm a dog enthusiast with years of practice. But I'm certainly not a dog expert. But I just know what has worked for me, and I've had some pretty good relationships with animals. However, like I said, these people at Michigan State University, they want to eliminate the chance because a dog is also a long-term commitment. If you really need a cuddle dog and you get a dog and it ain't a cuddle dog, you could be stuck with a disappointing dog for 15 years. So the experts at Michigan State said, you know what, if people just want this, if people want something like this, I go, well, what kind of dog? Let's do it. So they did this whole wide-ranging, and guess what they found out? They came up with the best cuddle dogs for people who want dogs that cuddle. All right, are you ready? Now, the first one here, should I do one or should we work our way? Should we go? Because honestly, I think one is obvious. You know, we'll just start with one. I think one is obvious. Michigan State University found that in their research to determine what breed is the best of the cuddle dogs, the dogs that will lay on you, will lay with you, will spoon with you, will do all of this stuff, constantly want to be with you. Number one, your grand champion, the Golden Retriever. Did we have any doubts? Yeah, then that's what I kind of thought. When you think of the cuddly Dudley, the cuddly little dog, you always think it's a golden. That they are the... I know that everybody says, you know, dog is God spelled backward. Yeah, but God's a golden retriever, right? I mean, like, if God is a dog breed, if he is manifesting, if he is trying to teach us through the behavior of dogs and the relationship we have with them, if that is God's message, if that's the thing, he's a golden retriever. Number one, most cuddly dog breeds, the golden retriever comes in at number one. What's second? Here's one that I don't know. I've never had one of these dogs, ironically. Number two, most cuddle dog, the pug. I hate these dogs. I know, ironically, right? Because I'm Pugs Moran, but that's not what, I'm not named after the dog. It's a baseball nickname. Anyway, the pug dog, is a cuddle because it's small? That doesn't count. That doesn't count. If you have to carry the dog, that carrying doesn't count as cuddling. And the cuddling has to be, I'm thinking it's got to be initiated by the dog, right? The dog's got to, if you got a pug dog and you're just carrying him, he's so cuddly. No, he's not. He has no choice. You're carrying him. Well, number two, the pug dog, second most cuddliest dog in the planet. All right, number three, what is the third most cuddly dog as determined by Michigan State University? Son of a bitch. Come on. Just go back to the top. Yeah, no, I was only going down and I was 3/4 of the way down. But no, please, you do you. You reset the entire page and go back to, I hate these bad, sketchy websites with all these stupid stories. Number three, the number three most cuddly ass dog. And this one had to be up there too. The Labrador Retriever. Hey, it's in the name. Golden Retriever, Labrador Retriever. These dogs are coming back to you. They are coming back and they want you. They're going to do something. Then you're going to come back and then you're going to love on them because they came back. These dogs understand. Number one, best cuddle dog, Golden Retriever. Number two, the pug. Number three, the Labrador Retriever. All right, let's keep going. Seriously, they're just amazing animals. Number four, this one I happen to know to be true, because I have a friend who has had nothing but, until recently, this breed. And I've spent a lot of time around this breed because this person is a friend of mine. And you couldn't go over to his house without at some point having to wrestle or roll on the floor or have this thing climb up on the couch and decide to use your lap as a pillow. And I am talking about the absurdly fun Great Dane. Great Danes are awesome. Great Danes are so lovable. Now, they could also take your face off if they wanted to. You know, their heads are the size of, a fat guy in a bar. Big fat bouncer, big giant head, big giant Great Dane heads. This is a bad metaphor. I was on the fly. Big fat guy in a bar that went nowhere. I regret that. But I'm streaming, so sometimes my jokes aren't going to even make sense. Great Danes are so cuddly, man. And they're like 200 pounds. And it's like they cave in your chest. But they are. Great Danes. Well, I mean, what's the famous picture that people always have with their Great Dane? If someone owns a Great Dane, they've somewhere on their Facebook page got a picture of them standing up and the Great Dane being on their hind legs and the Great Dane, and they're hugging each other. like they're two humans. I mean, that's the Great Dane loves that kind of shit. Great Dane walks around. It's the biggest thing ever. Like the Great Dane, no matter where the Great Dane goes, it's the biggest thing until it encounters a human. And it's like, okay, fine. And they're good natured. So it's like they're bigger than everything else. So they're like, I could accidentally kill any one of these things and I don't want to kill them. And then they see a human and they're like, oh, it's something that I can probably have a hug with. You know, that's what they are. Great Danes are awesome. but also, Great Danes, don't get it twisted. They'll kill you. Great Danes. You don't want a well-trained Great Dane. You don't want to walk into a house of a well-trained Great Dane. It's like a pissed off horse. You don't imagine if a horse was like, capable of fucking you up. That's what a well-trained Great Dane can do. Stumble on the wrong house, but they are also huge, lovable dogs. Number 5. Here we go. Number 5, most cuddly dog, the English Bulldog. Isn't this the dog that's like super hard to get because their heads are too big and they kill their mom when they're born and they're abominations? Aren't they the ones that aren't supposed to exist? Isn't there a dog breed that like, oh, yeah, they're great, but they kill their mothers when they're born because, they ain't supposed to be a thing. They weren't, their heads developed too quickly and it's not in sync with the size of the mother's vaginal tract, whatever it is. Isn't that English Bulldogs? They kill their mother? That's a bad way to start life. You better be cuddly. You're the mom killer breed. All right, number 5, English Bulldogs. Number 4 most cuddly dog is the Great Dane. The number 3 most cuddly dog is the Labrador Retriever. Number 2 most cuddly dog is the Pug. And number 1, the face of God himself, the Golden Retriever. I've never had a Golden Retriever, but I can tell you when I die, I will leave a Golden Retriever. It'll be a Golden Retriever that like has to go 3 days in my sad apartment before anybody notices. It'll be a Golden Retriever that they find. That's going to be because here's the thing about Golden Retriever. When you're older, like one of the big things about getting a dog when you're old is I don't want to not be able to walk it, but you also still want a big dog. Like I'm a big dog guy. I don't like little dogs. I don't dislike little dogs. I got no issue with little dogs other than they're too little for my tastes. It's not like, hate that little dog. No, little dogs are fine, but I love a big dog. Like a big dog is, oh, look at the big dog. Like I love a big dumb dog. So Golden Retrievers I think they'd be good for an old man. I think that they're docile. I think that they'll like me. Because that's the other thing you don't want. You don't want to be like an 80-year-old man with a dog that could kick your ass and knows it. I don't want to go out like that. That's not how I want to live my last 3 weeks in a stare down. Because I thought it would be cool to buy like a German Shepherd at 90. Like, and now it's like, what you looking at, old man? What you looking at, old man? Anyway, there you have it. That's the list. Guys, I'm out. That's it. We got nothing else. That's the show. Tip the show if you can. That'd be great. Love it. That's how we keep doing these. We've been doing them every day now for about, every day for about 2 years. Leave it up there. There you go. You can hit the Pugs Cast on Cash App, or you can go to Venmo, Pugs Moran. Appreciate you. Peter Lufkin was today's Peter L. I called him out as last name. I'm not sure I'm supposed to do that, but I just did it. So hope he's cool with it. He executive produced today's show. Thank you so much to Peter. Drop a little something, if you would, in the Cash App, the tip jar. It's been nice serving you this afternoon. Hope you have a good rest of your day. I'm not going to play a song. I'm not going to play the closing theme. I should. Don't want to. I just, because I just accidentally shut my phone down. It's going to take like 3 minutes. So we're not going to do that. See you tonight at 9 for Radio Misfits. It's me and Parker. I don't know what we're going to do tonight. I got to be honest. Last night we did the whole thing. Like I got distracted on a phone call. I was on the phone for like an hour before last night's show at 9:00, before last night's radio. And I'd had this thing, right? I wanted to do the conversation. I wanted to talk about the Q-spiracy of Taylor Swift actually being the same person as like a high priestess from Anton LaVey's Satanic Church from like the 70s. Anyway, there's people think she's the same person because they look like. I wanted to do that whole thing with James, but I was on the phone like for an hour before the show, and I didn't get to really, so I kind of shit the bed on that one. I'm sorry. I didn't present it well. It was just like, hey, how about this? And then I relied on James. I went back and I listened to the show, and there's like 3 times where I go, After James has already told me everything he thinks about the subject, because I had nothing, I went, yeah, James, so what's your take on it? It's like you say the same thing over again. I did that 3 times to him. This is why I shouldn't listen back to the shows. Jesus. Well, imposter syndrome. There is no peace for those of us who suffer from imposter syndrome. All right, gangsters, we'll see you tonight at 9 o'clock. And if not, gather back here tomorrow, 12 noon, high noon, 12 p.m. Central Standard Time, as we consider continue this exercise in futility that I like to call the High Noon Rant. Love you guys. We'll see you then. Bye. All right, I got to come back here for a second. 2 people said that. Byron's like, you were drunk last night. No, I wasn't. I didn't drink. I haven't had any alcohol, and I had a beer on Friday night. I was not drunk. I was a little giddy because, like I said, I was on the phone for an hour, and I was a little bit but I was not drunk. Somebody else said I was drunk last night. All right, now I got to look. You know why? I know. I slurred a couple of words. Do you know why I slurred a couple of words? You're not going to care, but I do these shows with little nicotine pouches in my mouth. And last night, the reason when I said I just came back and I had to run, I stopped and I had to buy new nicotine stuff. It's not tobacco. I don't chew tobacco anymore. I don't do anything with tobacco. I just, right now it's just a little pillow and there's nicotine in it. So and that's all I do. And it's good. I feel better about myself, but I had to get a different brand. And the different brand that I got, it's bigger and it's longer. And so I had to have it in a different part in my mouth. I know that this sounds, but because I know last night a couple of times I slurred words and I was like, oh shit. And I had to move it around in my mouth. And I'm like, So maybe that's why you think like I was drunk, but I was not drunk. Look, I would celebrate if I was drunk. You people, why am I accounting to you? I was sober. And then I got Jeff accusing me of being a Columbia poser. Ugh.